Good evening, everybody. I'm Seth Meyers. This is Late Night. We hope you're all doing well. We want to start off tonight by saying that, as I'm sure you've heard by now, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was murdered yesterday at a college event in Utah. We're horrified by this grotesque tragedy, and our condolences go out to his family and loved ones. It should never be a matter of political ideology to mourn and to extend our fullest and deepest empathy to those who are suffering. Political violence is abhorrent and anathema to the highest ideals of this country. It corrodes us and threatens the very foundations of our democracy. The great promise of our democratic experiment is that we can engage with one another and resolve our differences through dialogue, not violence. We must hold true to that promise and strive toward it with our fullest effort, even when it feels furthest away. I would be remiss if I did not also mention that several students were shot and injured in a school in Colorado yesterday, just 2 weeks after a horrific school shooting in Minnesota that killed 2 children and injured 21 more. There have already been over 300 mass shootings and 47 school shootings this year alone. We've said this many times on this program, and we'll say it again. Gun violence is a plague in this country. We desperately need reasonable gun safety laws to stop this epidemic of tragedy and pain. No matter the identity or ideology of these perpetrators, one thing is always constant: the guns. We must make it possible for children to go to school and for everyone to engage in public debate without the threat of gun violence looming over them. 3 months ago, Minnesota Democratic lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were murdered in their home in what officials described as a politically motivated assassination. Just last month, a man was sentenced to 80 years in prison for orchestrating a politically motivated shooting spree against Democratic lawmakers in New Mexico. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and his family were the targets of an attempted assassination in April. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul, was violently attacked in their home 3 years ago. One person was killed and dozens were injured in a white supremacist terror attack in Charlottesville in 2017. A violent mob stormed the Capitol and attacked police officers on January 6, 2021. And there were not one, but 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump. Sadly, I could go on. This rising tide of political violence will only lead to a darker and more dangerous place, and it must end. In a moment like this, it is the responsibility of all public figures to marshal their dignity and compassion and lead us to a calmer, more rational place. This effort cannot be one-sided, and it must start at the top. A Dartmouth study last year found that the vast majority of Americans across the political spectrum reject and abhor political violence. They are waiting for their leaders to join them. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And now, if you do not mind, we are going to get to our show, which will start now with a joke. And we know it's a weird transition. Here we go, everybody. Let's get to the news. Let's get to the news. After Poland shot down Russian drones that had entered their airspace, President Trump posted on Truth Social yesterday and said, quote, "What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? I don't know, man, but it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence when the commander-in-chief goes on social media all the time to ask us what's going on. At least the last president only asked that with his face." That's right, President Trump posted on Truth Social and said, quote, "What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go." All right, I don't love "here we go." It's hard to read tone in a social media post. Are you saying "here we go" like a kid at the top of a roller coaster? Or is it like a fed-up husband in a fight with his wife? Okay, here we go. In any case, it would be nice to have a president we didn't have to read like a magic 8-ball. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said on Tuesday that President Trump would support a handwriting analysis of the so-called Jeffrey Epstein birthday letter. Well, I know where we could find another example. Republican Senator Thom Tillis told reporters yesterday that Russia is, quote, "really playing us like a piano right now." Playing us like a piano? Or are you thinking of President Steinway over here? After facing conservative backlash, Cracker Barrel announced yesterday that the company does not have a DEI department or use those practices while hiring. In fact, they don't ask you anything before hiring you. You can start today. The restaurant chain Outback Steakhouse had added a new dessert to its menu called the, quote, Chocolate Thunder from Down Under. That doesn't sounds like a symptom. Oh, yeah, I can't make it to the party, mate. I got the chocolate thunder from down under. Gonna be a few days before you see me again, mate. Thank you. And apologies to our Australian viewers who have constantly told me to stop doing the voice. The NCAA announced yesterday that it has banned 3 college basketball players and permanently revoked their eligibility for allegedly betting on their games and planning to underperform in statistical categories. That's why it's better to be a Giants fan. The players underperform for the love of the game. The telehealth company Hims & Hers announced yesterday that it will expand into testosterone treatments for people who feel safe getting hormone therapy from a company that sounds like it was named by Jar Jar Binks. According to a new survey, 40% of adults consult their partner before making a large purchase, while others clearly don't. The lightsaber used by Darth Vader in the first Star Wars trilogy recently sold at auction for nearly $4 million. So I'm guessing that's one of the adults who don't consult their partner on big purchases? It was used by Darth Vader. That's not a real person. And finally, the thrift store chain Goodwill is set on Saturday to co-host its first fashion show. So at least someone's enjoying my t-shirts. That was a monologue, everybody. We have begun the show, and we've got a great one for you tonight. She's an Oscar-nominated and Emmy-winning actress you know from Ugly Betty, Superstore, and Barbie. Currently, she's starring in The Lost Bus, which opens in select theaters next weekend and streams on Apple TV Plus October 3rd. Our friend America Ferrera is back on the show, everybody. And he is an Emmy-nominated actor you know from Notting Hill, the Paddington films, and of course Downton Abbey. He returns in Downton Abbey, the grand finale in theaters Friday. Hugh Bonneville is here, everybody. But before we get to all that, the Bureau of Labor Statistics announced on Thursday that consumer prices rose more than expected in August. Thankfully, that wasn't a huge issue for voters last year. Wait, it was? All right. Yeah, but for which voters? Oh, all of them. Well, for more on this, it's time for a closer look. If you were following last year's presidential election, you might remember that there was one issue that seemed to dominate above all the others.
Consumers are fed up with higher prices.
Americans continue to talk about high prices.
Households are spending more on food, energy, and housing.
Inflation is a big problem.
This is inflation.
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 Grocery prices.
Food prices.
Higher prices.
Consumer prices.
Grocery prices.
The price of bacon is soaring.
Potatoes, canned green beans, ground beef, relish.
Bacon, lettuce, tomato. They call it groceries.
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 There was so much talk about groceries in last year's election, there were times when CNN seemed like the Food Network. They even hired Guy Fieri as a panelist for their debate coverage. He kept screaming, "Shut the front door," but he was saying it to Joe Biden about his mouth. The point is, consumer prices were far and away the biggest issue for voters last year. That's because it's the #1 thing people encounter on a daily basis. Gas prices are literally on giant signs on the side of the road. It's the only industry that taunts us when prices go up. If a streaming service jacks up subscription prices, they send out a sheepish note that says something like, beginning October 1st, your plan will see a modest price increase of 99 cents per month. Meanwhile, gas stations are like, open your wallet, sucker, because gas is $5 a gallon. $5.50 if you want the good. What are you gonna do, take a bus? Remember the egg crisis? The great egg crisis? It was a huge issue for a simple reason. everyone eats eggs.
In January, the price for a dozen eggs reached a record high. We're talking like $4.95 per dozen eggs. And prices are only expected to rise this year even further. And of course, eggs are such a staple of the American diet. That is what's so important to keep in mind, right? You know, we talk about ways that people might feel the economy. You know, we talk about the stock market, but you know, only about 60% of Americans own stock. We're talking about 80% of Americans who eat eggs weekly, at least once a week.
80% of Americans eat eggs weekly. I have to admit, I did not realize it was that high. I mean, I eat my share, as anyone who watches my morning routine on TikTok knows. 4 a.m. wake up, 4:15 eat 10 egg omelet, 4:30 start 1,000 sit-ups, 4:31 get bad tummy ache, 4:32 run to bathroom but don't make it in time, 4:33 yell don't worry about it to my wife after she yells don't tell me you another pair of sweatpants. You guys get it. You've seen it. You've seen it. You all seen it. I've seen the likes. You've seen it. It's especially interesting to hear that more Americans eat eggs than own stocks. But like, why does it have to be either or? Why can't you buy shares in eggs like a stock? Well, now you can't. With my cryptocurrency, Seth Meyers Eggcoin. Eggcoin is the newest digital currency from the Seth Meyers World Crypto Fund. And if you don't know how to buy crypto, good news. These are also physical egg coins you can buy in the NBC store. Just walk up to the register here at 30 Rock and tell the cashier, I'd like one of those Seth Meyers egg coins, please. And if they're not sure what you're talking about, that's because technically they're not authorized for sale in the NBC store. I've been sneaking them in myself and hiding them behind the Central Perk mugs. So get your Seth Meyers egg coins today. Why did the chicken cross the road? To cash in, baby. The point is, consumer prices are the one thing all voters encounter in their daily lives, which is why it was the #1 issue last year and why today's news from the Bureau of Labor Statistics is not great.
Just moments ago, a new inflation report showing that the cost of living continues to be on the rise, continues to increase for Americans.
The cost of living heated up during the month of August, even more than expected, and this is coming even as the job market is stumbling.
Right.
So the latest numbers show the consumer prices jumping by 2.9% year over year in August. Gasoline also ticking higher. Used cars and trucks, 1% increase there. Car repair, 5% increase. Jewelry,
Talking about
7%.
parts, all that. Yep.
Sewing machines.
Yep.
Jewelry and sewing machines? That's a real double punch for Betty Draper. I love when economic news just gets super random and starts to feel like Mad Libs. Prices are up for cars, gas, jewelry, sewing machine, roller skates, Jell-O, maracas, lava lamps, snowshoes, whoopee cushions, googly eyes, novelty books that have a secret compartment inside, and capes. But seriously, I mean, sewing machine prices are going up. How am I supposed to do all my embroidering now? I was gonna make little late night t-shirts for my Labubus, and now you're telling me I gotta do it by hand? Also, I was in the middle of embroidering a pillow that says home sweet home, but now thanks to rising sewing prices, I can't finish it. So that's gonna be a real issue when she gets home. And if you're wondering when I do my embroidering, it's at 5:41 a.m. right after I move my sweatpants from the washing machine to the dryer. And if it feels to you like the price of almost everything is going up, you're right. It's not just sewing machines and jewelry, it's also travel.
The price of getting on an airplane, airfare, spiking by 6% between
Really?
July and August. That's the biggest monthly increase for airfare in 3 years.
Yep.
We are seeing a rise in used cars rising 6% on the year, and new vehicle costs rising 0.7% on the year. Let me get you shelter. Year over year, shelter an increase of 3.6%.
Cars, gas, air travel, and shelter. So basically every part of a vacation. Are they also jacking up the price of Biscoff cookies? Because if they do that, I'm gonna be angry. In fact, you might even say I'd be bisqued off. And that's today's end of the week cookie pun. And look, It's not just expensive stuff like cars and airfare. Even basic everyday goods at ubiquitous convenience stores are getting pricier.
I'm going to turn now to Dollar Tree, warning that its prices will keep rising as President Trump's tariffs drive up the cost of imported goods. The discount chain said price increases that began in the second quarter will continue through the end of the year, but says it's also rolling out more $3 to $5 frozen and refrigerated items. The retailer imports goods from China, Mexico, Canada, and other countries and says it's taking steps to mitigate the tariffs' impact, but that higher costs can't be avoided.
Okay, tariffs or not, you can't call it Dollar Tree if your products don't cost $1. I haven't been this disappointed since I went to Five Guys, and there were at most 2 working there. I said, where are the other 3 guys? And they said, huh? And I said, there are supposed to be 5 guys, but I only see 2. And they said, are you gonna place an order? And I said, fine, I'll have an egg sandwich. And they said, that'll be $27. I'm just kidding. They said, this is Five Guys. We don't have egg sandwiches. Get the out of here. And then the other 3 guys came out and they were like, so in a way I won because I got all 5 guys. Seriously, you can't call it Dollar Tree. We wouldn't keep calling this show Late Night if NBC moved it to 9 a.m. and paired us up with Al Roker, which, by the way, I would be open to. I've always been jealous of Roker getting to do those Smucker's 100th birthday celebrations. I even asked NBC if I could do one, and they said no, but they did say I could do the Skippy Almost Made It Awards. Congratulations to Dale Walker of Tampa, Florida, who made it to 98. So close. This chart's for you, bud. And it's not just convenience store chains. Everyone's feeling the impact of rising prices, perhaps most of all, farmers.
We begin tonight with hundreds of struggling Arkansas farmers.
A dismal global market and plunging commodity prices mean there's little to no hope of breaking even for many farmers, even as sky-high input costs rise because of inflation and now tariffs.
This time last year, the rice price was about 40% higher than it is now. The inputs costs have gone up, so after a horrible year last year where most farmers in Arkansas Delta lost money, this year's going to be worse.
Okay, I'm just going to admit something. I did not know they grew so much rice in Arkansas. In fact, it's the #1 state for rice production. I mean, what a fact. Do you know how proud I would feel if we were at Bar Trivia Night and they asked, what's the #1 state for rice production? And while everyone was debating Iowa or California, I just calmly said, it's Arkansas. And everyone doubted me, and then it turned out I was right. I'm just kidding. I'd never be caught dead at a Bar Trivia Night. Not because it doesn't sound fun, but because I have 3 kids, so I'm already peppered with inane questions all day. And for anyone who's saying, but Seth, with Bar Trivia, you can drink while you get your questions. I do. But in all seriousness, one entity that is buying less rice from farmers than it used to is the federal government, who used to purchase it through USAID and send it to countries who needed it. One might call that a win-win. People who need food getting it, farmers who grow it getting compensation. But of course, Elon Musk only saw fraud and waste, and now rice farmers are correctly worried about what's going to happen to them. It's not like they can just switch overnight from growing rice to growing
bacon,
canned green beans, ground beef relish.
This has been a closer look.